Soda's not generally a health food. I don't think that's a secret, but I don't think having a soda every now and then is usually the reason for all of someone's, crumbling health. Hello there, everyone. Allie here, your host for the Pre-Diet Podcast, teaching you everything you need to know before you start another diet on Monday. So this is hopefully a short episode with a lot of impact. I'm usually not one to attack one specific food as far as labeling it as this is bad or this is the reason for your health issues or anything like that. I'm usually pretty agnostic as far as like strong opinions when it comes to nutrition. But this has been really helpful for a recent client of mine, and I thought I would share it because I think we learned a lot of really good tools lately with this particular scenario. So in this episode, I want to cover some ways to help you break up with soda, simple steps to cut back and help you feel better. That is always my goal with nutrition. It's never to make people feel bad or anything like that. I want them to feel good. It's not about deprivation. I really want to educate people about food, and you can make the decision whether you want to include it or you want to include something else. If you want to change something, if you're happy with how things are going, all of that is totally within your control. Thank you so much for listening to the Pre-Diet Podcast. As a thank you for listening to this episode, I would love for you to subscribe to the Free Shit Friday email list. And there I have a free PDF download for you full of beverages to try out if you are trying to diversify your beverages besides just plain old water. I got a huge long list for you of beverages to include in your day that don't take away from your health and could be something to work in the mix besides these sugar sweetened beverages to hopefully help you improve your overall health and still enjoy a fun beverage. Like I said before, I'm pretty relaxed when it comes to nutrition. So a lot of people will say like, well, obviously soda is the reason for XYZ. Soda's not generally a health food. I don't think that's a secret, but I don't think having a soda every now and then is usually the reason for all of someone's, crumbling health. It's usually a cumulative effect. So maybe it's overall too much sugar, maybe it's overall too much calorie consumption or lack of exercise or lack of vegetables, lack of fiber, things like that. It's usually multifactorial. It's not usually one specifically bad food, but this is a super, super common drink. A lot of people drink a lot of soda, and I don't think it's a fault of like anyone's character or anything like that. Food science is really powerful. Like really good scientists are really good at making foods incredibly delicious and incredibly, easy to overconsume. So let's take away all the shame and like guilt away from that. Like food is delicious. People make good products, good food products. So let's just kind of let that go and just talk about it in a really objective, neutral way. So you can have a real discussion without so much emotion attached to it. That's the goal, at least. So a brief little client story. Like I said, I'm not usually one to like pinpoint one specific food on someone's food log unless it's, coming up a lot and it's kind of the lowest hanging fruit of like, hey, if we change this one food or if we swap this one food out that you're having all the time, we can make a really big impact. Because me as a person on the other end, if I was a client and I'm doing this one habit that could really change my trajectory as far as success, I want to know about it, right? And then I can make the decision of how important is this food? Do I really want to keep it in my routine? Or if it's not that important, maybe we can switch something else. Or maybe it's not actually that important to me and I can switch to something else that can again kickstart my progress. I would be game for that. So I always try to do this in a very neutral way. I really don't like them. I know it's a common visual for people, but when we like spoon out how many grams of sugar is in whatever food, and people are like, oh my gosh, look at this huge amount of sugar that you're eating. But this has come up before, and I do think numbers are pretty powerful. Demonstrations are pretty powerful. So it's quite common for people to have multiple sodas per day. So I've had a couple instances where clients are consuming like 3 cans of soda per day, and real soda, not necessarily the sugar-free stuff. And say 3 of those sodas is about 106 grams of sugar. That actually equates to about a half a cup of granulated sugar. So visually, that is quite impressive. That's a lot. Calorie-wise, that equates to about 424 calories in one day coming just from sugar. That's not accounting for anything else. And that added up for the entire week is almost 3,000 calories, 2,968 calories per week. For reference, 1 pound of fat is usually about 3,500 calories. So quite a bit, right? Just coming from that one habitual, drink, not even a food, but just a drink that we're having each day. So if we were to add that up, that's actually about 3.5 pounds per month of potential fat tissue. And then if we add that up over the year, that adds up to about 41 pounds per year. That's assuming that's the amount of excess that we're consuming. So if everything else is neutral, so if everything else that person is consuming is at maintenance and it's just the soda, they're in a surplus, calorie surplus by that amount, that's how much they would gain in that year. Now, that's not real life. There's lots of other factors that go into that. They might not be in a surplus by 400 calories every single day, and they might not gain that amount of weight. But it would be very easy, right? And we'll talk about why it's so easy to continue to overconsume when we are having those types of foods. And again, this is not a shame game. I just want to illustrate this because a lot of these lessons are learned very quickly up front when I'm working with a client because we are tracking their food. And I usually just highlight this in the sense of like, hey, looking at today, this was a higher day. Let's look at why. And we'll look at chronometer and maybe the carbs are really high or the fat's really high. I'll click on that bar on the app. This is the chronometer app, by the way, and or chronometer.com. It's a great tool. And it will show you where you got your most carbohydrates from, where most of your calories came from, where most of your fat came from. If you're over in one of those specific categories, you can learn where that budget went. So that is a really helpful tool. And for some of these clients that were over consuming on the soda side of things, that was a continuous trend. I'm like, hey, if we cut this out or we just go down to one, or if we find something else that's a little bit more budget friendly, we can make a really big impact without really too much extra work or, reinventing the wheel, so to speak. But let's talk about why we would even want to cut back, why we would even consider quitting. Like I said in the beginning, it's not a health food. It's not contributing to health. This is more of a want than a need. Our body usually doesn't create a deficiency in soda. So anytime I think I'm becoming more reliant on a particular food or food product, I tend to ask why. And I've seen this a lot with a lot of different things, whether it's like candy, sugars, coffee, any kind of those easily addictive foods. I kind of question like, okay, where else can I create some more stability or more comfort or lower the stress in my life so I'm not as reliant on those specific foods to provide either energy, comfort, or help me reduce stress. Because I think if we were more rested, if we managed our stress better, if we nourished our bodies with really good nutrition, those cravings and those, addictive foods wouldn't have so much power over us. And that's really easy to say, and it's really difficult to do something about that, right? If your job is stressful, if you're just in a season of life where you're raising little kids, like that's not an easy thing to fix overnight, but I think at least addressing that. And I know for myself, when I've struggled with binge eating in the past, it was because I was stressed out. It wasn't, I was even binging on broccoli. So it's not like the food was especially delicious or anything like that, but it was something else in my life that I was craving comfort from food when I wasn't getting it in other areas of life. So just have that in mind, just so we can be, like I said, really objective and really honest with ourselves of like, if I know I'm really stressed out, I know I'm leaning on sugar because I'm stressed out. I'm not leaning on sugar because it actually solves my problem. And I think that is a big step when we are trying to confront these habit changes or negative habits, because if we just say it like it is, like I'm using this as a crutch, this is not actually solving my problems. We say that over and over again enough times, and I see clients start to realize that, and they're more likely to have the ability to step away or say no to those things because they think they're like, they've taken enough notes from the times that they've, quote, messed up or had setbacks. And they're like, this candy bar does not actually solve my problems. And as silly as that sounds, that gives them a lot of power to be like, those 3 cookies I had for lunch, they didn't change my life. I didn't need them. They weren't that powerful. And this is not to say that we're never going to have these indulgent foods again. It's not, but it gives you more power and more choice in the matter or the scenarios of when we get to enjoy those, when we want to enjoy those, when that makes the most sense, and when it gives us the most value to include those things. We don't want to include these foods that don't give us health benefits every day. We don't want that to be a routine thing. If we think about the typical example for healthy habits, right, is we want to make this as easy as brushing our teeth. Well, imagine something so consistent as brushing our teeth, but make it something that really takes away from your health. So maybe instead of brushing our teeth, we actively like smear candy or sugar or something in our mouth and just let it sit and marinate overnight. Like how gross is that, right? So you're actively like helping your teeth decay. That's pretty gross and pretty like, I mean, I don't even want to go near that, right? I don't even consider that. So, and that's what I'm talking about when we're looking at our daily, regular, routine, consistent habits. Let's make those consistent habits, those regular routine stuff that we do all day, every day, really health promoting. So if I'm brushing my teeth every single day, if I'm flossing, if I'm using a water pick, if I'm following all the instructions that my orthodontists and dentists give me to have the best, dental health possible, and then occasionally if I have cake, that's not a big deal, right? Or if I occasionally do something that's really not good for my dental health, once a year, twice a year, once a month, whatever the frequency is, but my routine game is so on point, I don't really have to stress about that, right? It's the same for health. If I'm doing so many good things on a daily basis, but this is the time I want to choose to have, enjoy a soda with dinner when I go out to eat, when it's a special occasion. Like that's not really a big deal. I do find that most people don't like the taste as much when they don't have it as often because they're usually reducing their overall sugar consumption. And then they go back to that sugar sweetened beverage and it tastes really, really sickly sweet to them. That's a very common thing that I notice a lot. Just in the process of people becoming healthier, quite often they'll say that their food is bland, it tastes like cardboard, but that's also because they are consuming foods that are just the taste is so elevated, it's super sweet, it's super salty, it's super loud, basically. This is essentially like going to a rock concert and someone is trying to whisper in your ear. You can't hear it. There's no way that that registers. The volume has to be so high, the environment is so loud for you to register that. That's the same thing for our food. If our food is fast food, it's continuously food that is just hyper palatable, it's really hard to notice the subtleties or the flavors of like simply salted and roasted vegetables. Like that doesn't really register at the rock concert, right? That's essentially your friend whispering in your ear. So you have to take time to change your taste buds, change what kind of registers as tasting good. And that's a transition, but you go through it, you eat more whole foods, you get through that, you start to feel better. That's where the buy-in comes from, like, oh, I'm starting to feel better. These foods are starting to taste better. And sometimes when we reincorporate some of those more decadent or indulgent foods, the taste is not what we remember because we've adjusted our palate to realize, oh, I am actually tasting, my taste is a way more sensitive sense now. And so that what used to be just kind of register as like baseline sweet is now super sweet. So while that takes time, and that's not really a sexy solution to this problem when you're actively trying to quit a highly sweetened beverage like this, hopefully that is the light at the end of the tunnel of like, this will get better. It will get easier. If you listen to the previous episode on how to create motivation, we use an example of when you're doing anything new, it takes a high percentage of your discipline and motivation. So if we think of our discipline or motivation as a battery, it might take you like 80 to 90% to say no to soda the first couple of days that you decide to reduce it or quit. But hopefully, at day 100, day 500, you're using like maybe 5%, 10%, a really low percentage of your overall battery of motivation and discipline to do that because you've done it so often. It's become an easier habit for you. So there is light at the end of the tunnel with this. But next, I'd love to talk about some of the physiological impacts or how your body is processing and reacting to these types of beverages. So again, you just have some more information of what's happening behind the scenes to do with whatever you want. If you don't care and you're like, Allie, I'm still going to have my soda, cool. But at least now you're semi-informed. So the main reason that I obviously am not a big fan of these beverages is it just causes a lot of blood glucose spikes. So it's just a lot of sugar with no breaks. So there's no protein, no real fat, no real fiber. Those things tend to slow the absorption of carbohydrates into our system. So it's just a ton of sugar all at once. And that increases our blood sugar really quickly within the body. The body likes to keep things pretty homeostatic, so within a happy range. And so we jack that up, sugar goes way high, and the body says, that's too high. I'm going to pump out a bunch of insulin and help get that blood sugar level down. And we do that, but quite often the body will overproduce or overreact and pump out a bunch of insulin, bringing our blood sugar back down way too low. And that's where we get sugar crashes. And that's quite often when you get more sugar cravings because my blood sugar just dropped really quickly and too low. And so I'm again craving something new and the roller coaster continues from there. And then we're on this kind of roller coaster of just sugar cravings, another hit, sugar cravings, crash, another hit. So and that's pretty stressful for the body, not to mention not really good for our energy levels, our mood, or anything like that. Just really doesn't contribute to feeling good throughout the day. And this projected over a long period of time can create insulin resistance because our body stops listening to those massive doses of insulin. And then our blood sugars remain high and we can't pump out enough insulin to actually get our cells to be sensitive enough anymore to bring down that glucose level. And this is where prediabetes, type 2 diabetes starts to set in. Also fatty liver disease risk can increase from this type of lifestyle and this type of overconsumption as well. Not to mention bone health could be affected, dental health could be affected by this as well. And like I said, those are some of the negatives, but also if we're focusing on the positive, like the majority of our actions should be lining up with the benefits we want to reap, with the good things that we're trying to seek. So stable energy would be fantastic. Can you imagine A lot of people find it easier to, I think a lot of people forget or stop treating themselves like athletes or like they have to perform unless they are in that athletic or performance stage of their life. And I think as adults age, they forget that like I still want to treat myself as an athlete because I want to perform well. Whatever performance looks like at that stage of life, I need to perform well, whether I'm a stay-at-home mom, whether I'm a CEO, whether I'm anything. I need to perform well to get the most out of my life. So if that is my goal, I need stable energy. I do so much better. I don't know about you, but if I have stable energy and if I have a stable mood throughout the day, that contributes so much to my quality of life. That is what I want to focus on, and that's what I'm chasing with these habit changes. So always be connected to that deeper why of why I'm doing this hard stuff, especially when you're in the moment of just feeling really uncomfortable with making these changes. I'd love to bring up an example that came about with a client this week because we were having trouble just in those moments of like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do my new good habit, or maybe I'll just pass for today because I'm really tired of this or that, right? So you're at that crossroads of like, do I do the thing that I've been trying to add in, or do I pass on today? And it's really easy to pass. It's really easy to just be, oh, I'm really tired, or find a reason not to. There's always going to be reasons not to do something that we're trying really hard to incorporate. And to that, it might seem extreme, but I really want to put that crossroads with the background of like what we're choosing long term. So what I mean with that, if this scenario is going to the gym, so I'm trying to build a gym habit, maybe that's just going to the treadmill to walk. The other option, like saying yes to that, also means I'm saying yes to being really active with my family for the next 10, 20 years. Saying yes to that little small habit today is another vote towards that future that I want. And me passing on that or saying no for today is me saying, that's okay. And that's a no vote for me going to play with my kids in 10 or 20 years. I'll just let them go play on their own. I don't want to make it super heavy, but like those little actions add up so much over time. Time goes by so quickly. So if we think about that of every little those actions, just like again, brushing your teeth twice a day, like the doctor recommends, can add up to really good dental benefits later in life. But even skipping that half the time, like that's a really big deal. That's a 50% of the votes going in the wrong direction. So I don't want to be overbearing or, shame people, feel like I'm shaming people into making, the healthy habits happen. But also if the healthy habits happen, we're probably going to end up in a better spot. So really take those votes seriously, those little daily actions seriously towards a better future, a more active future. And it also becomes, I say this and I bring this example up because it becomes easier. Me going to the gym, if you ask me in the morning when I'm tired and it's like, do you want to go to the gym today? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the answer is no. But if you ask me, do you want to be really strong in 30 years? Heck yes. Heck yes, I want to be really strong in 30 years. I absolutely want to be here for my family in the strongest possible physique I can manage. That's a pretty no-brainer. So I'm going to go to the gym. If that's the options that are on the table and I'm staying connected to that why the heck I'm doing this, why the heck I'm getting up so early to go to the gym, that's why. And it's pretty undeniable, right? So keep that connection really tight in your mind of like, why the heck am I doing this? I'm so uncomfortable. I shouldn't have to do this, blah, 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 blah. All that head trash that comes up. These are the tools that help you kind of navigate those moments of being uncomfortable. But even before you say that you're going to quit soda, if that feels like a lot, I'd love for you to just take notes. Just take notes on the habits throughout your day, the emotions throughout the day. Why are you doing what you're doing? Basically, what's causing you to reach for it? Is it that you need an afternoon pick-me-up? Is it you just need a hit for caffeine? Maybe we can find a different hit of caffeine that's not so calorically dense and doesn't have as many negative side effects. Maybe we can also work on sleep. Maybe we can pair our caffeine with meals. Maybe we can work with some stress relief techniques. Maybe we can change our environment so we're not triggered to reach for that. But let's just take some notes on the scenario and the habits that are happening and see where you're getting triggered to act in a certain way and reach for those sugar sweetened beverages. Again, this is not a willpower problem necessarily. It's a biology problem. Like we're hardwired to like love highly sugary things. They taste delicious. Food science is really good. They're really effective at what they do. So don't let this be a dent towards your character or anything like that. This is just habit change. We can change habits. That's hopefully the empowering part. And once you figure out how your mind works and how you can get yourself to change your behavior, it's limitless. If this soda is the challenge today, another health challenge comes to mind tomorrow, you can have the confidence of like, oh, it's just a habit change. I just got to work on a new habit. That's well within my capabilities. Next, let's talk about a step-by-step strategy. So a framework is giving you an actual framework on how to do this. So it does depend on the person. Some people can quit cold turkey. If you feel like that's you, great. But I really, like I said, as far as the first part of taking notes, just be open to having less or breaking up the frequency of the habit. So we don't necessarily need to go cold turkey and never have a sip of soda in our lives again. That's one option, but I don't think that's most people. So first step is awareness. So track how much you're having. When are you having it? Why are you having it? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling stressed? Are you just tired? Take notes on those things. Step 2 is going to be start with the easiest swap. So if you can't swap it for something, maybe it's for having 3 or 4 sodas a day. Maybe it's one soda is actually going to be a sparkling water now. Maybe it's a unsweetened iced tea. Maybe it's a electrolyte drink that tastes good to you. Maybe it's a flavored sparkling water like LaCroix or Spindrifts or something like that. One client is really enjoying Fit Aids. They're basically just a vitamin water type of drink. Don't really have a lot of calories, but there's other options. And this is the point where I really don't want you to get overwhelmed or listen to people who are saying like, oh, well, those just artificial sweeteners. Those aren't good for you either. One thing at a time here, people. Like one positive change at a time. Let's not try to aim for perfect before we just are looking at another baseline improvement. Step 3 is going to be reduce caffeine dependency. So if caffeine is a big crutch for you, I think caffeine can still be a part of a healthy overall lifestyle, but we just need to be realistic with the amount that we're consuming and also get real with why we need that much. So are we lacking sleep? Is this just a phase of life that we're in where we kind of need that? Sleep is not going to be good. Maybe you have little kids. Like that's probably just going to be a phase of life. Maybe we can add more exercise in. Maybe we can add some more time outside or just walking outside. So again, you have a chance to reduce that stress and a chance to reduce that dependency on that particular tool. If we can do the real work to help reduce our reliance and again, create more strength and stability within ourselves, as far as our baseline habits, making that change to something else or reducing that bad habit is going to be much easier. Step 4 is going to be tackle the ritual. So hopefully from taking notes, you've realized maybe it's an afternoon habit or something like that. So be aware of that specific scenario or time frame during the day where that habit becomes more challenging to say no to. So if it's your afternoon pick-me-up that really gets you through the last couple hours of work, maybe we can find something else that aligns a little bit more with your health goals, but also gives you that kind of sense of reward at that time. So we're just changing the ritual. This could be iced tea. This could be another beverage. It could be a snack. This could be a reward of getting outside, just taking a little bit of a breather. But let's find something that really does truly refill you and give you something back and is restorative in some way. And hopefully that aligns better with our health goals. Step 5 is get a little bit more specific about your goal that you want to set or just breaking up the frequency. So usually with clients, I don't necessarily say that they need to cut it out, but I'm like, hey, let's, if we're having 3 per day, let's go to 2 per day. Or if it's an everyday thing for having 1 soda per day, let's go every other day, something like that. Just something that's an improvement, not necessarily the all or nothing, because I don't really want to reinforce the all or nothing mindset in general. If you want to quit cold turkey, by all means, go for it. But I really want people to celebrate their progress and build momentum versus celebrating that perfectionist mindset. And overall, hopefully this helps you create just a better routine around hydration, keeping maybe a new water bottle visible and on your desk, something that looks cool, or maybe you put fun stickers on it, but something visually to kind of keep you on track and focus towards those overall health goals that do align better versus just trying to, have a bunch of discipline and resist the old bad habit. Try to make the new one a positive one by reinforcing those habits of staying properly hydrated throughout the day, properly fueled and nourished throughout the day, and those cravings will get a lot easier. All right, guys, hopefully this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening to the Pre-Diet Podcast. I'm really trying to bring some good old nutrition advice for people that is delivered in a non-dogmatic and non-bullying way, non-shameful way. We don't need any guilt. This stuff is hard enough, but hopefully this podcast and these episodes are helping you simplify things and making it really practical for you to implement these habit changes in your own life. As a thank you for listening to the episode, I will also be putting a list of beverages that have been really helpful for my clients to start to include into the Free Shit Friday subscribers library. All right, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully these tips were helpful. Thank you so much for listening to the Pre-Diet Podcast, and I will hopefully see you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to the Free Shit Friday email list That's at parksidenutrition.com/subscribe. It'll be in the description below. Follow along on social media, Ali, ALI, Parkside Nutrition. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you share with a friend, like, and follow on Spotify or YouTube. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.